Good morning. Hi, my name is David Theus, and welcome to yet another episode number 19 of the Saturday Morning Coaching Call, brought to you by the Small Business Patriot and Northeast Florida Business Alliance. Today is May 28th, Saturday morning, and real time is 9:08 a.m. So it is true, we do this on Saturday morning, so each one of us are giving up a portion of our morning with family or events that we've got planned to hopefully come on, share a little bit about our business, maybe some concerns or some thoughts that we've got, and then seek some guidance, some information from myself as a 30-year plus veteran small business owner and now coach or consultant, if you will. But I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. There's two ladies with me today. Of course, Peggy, Lynch, and with 21K Promotions, and a new guest, Renee Thorp, with DIRenee Creations. And each one of these ladies are small business owners in their own right, and they've been in business for a fair amount of time in their own right, and they bring their own expertise and also, of course, questions to the table. So one of them may have answers to a solution, but in the meantime, I get to hear it, we get to talk about it, and then I get to kind of close it up, wrap it up, put a bow on it, put it on the shelf toward the end of the show. So if you've been following along with us and you're watching here on YouTube this morning, or whenever you're seeing this, please like and follow us and subscribe. And if you're catching us on the audio file portion of this on Spotify or wherever you catch your podcast, please like, follow, and subscribe as well. And share with a friend or coworker or fellow small business person that you think that may benefit from hearing this episode. So having said all that, good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
I think we'll let Renee go first, if it's okay with you, since you're Renee is a member of the Northeast Florida Business Alliance, and she's been a member of our organization, formerly Promote Clay. You're in your second or going into your second year? Okay. And so if you don't mind, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your company and what you do, and maybe share a story of something you're doing and what's happening in your life.
Well, good morning and thank you. I'm Renee with DIRenee Creations. I started my creativity, which is sewing, and then I turned into the love of embroidery. And I also do some graphic type shirts or bags or whatever the graphic needs to be on. But I started this around 2013, 14. I was laid off from banking after 25 years, and my kids got married the following years, and then the grandbabies came, and it's like, here, Mom, you can do this. Here, Mom, you can do that. And it just kind of snowballed. I started doing farmers markets, started getting clientele that would come back repeatedly every market. They'd come see me. Didn't know different connections that I had with them through other networking groups. And I'm like, oh, I see you all the time. I had no idea. But I started sewing when I was 9. So it's been over 50 years of sewing and getting this knowledge in me. And I just absolutely love it. I think about it in the morning, at night, when I go for my walks. It's just in me. Some of the projects that I've been working on lately, I do a lot of alterations lately. Weddings have just blown up this year. I've probably done a dozen or so plus bridesmaid dresses, mother of the bride, prom dresses, you name it. I also alter pants, suit jackets. But right now school just let out. So now I'm promoting, get your beach towel with your child's name on it. So it comes back home every day, or it goes to a friend's, and
that's a great idea.
Whose towel's this? So So I do a variety of things and I absolutely love it.
Well, and I remember you told a story that your mother was I guess not a seamstress, I guess you'd call it, or
My grandmother,
your grandmother. That's right.
yeah, she worked for Oneida City Hospital and she did all their mending.
Okay.
And I would go and visit her in the afternoon, like after school or something, and just watch her just sew. And joining 4-H, I just fell in love with it.
You know, it's a lost art, I think, and as part of our show, if you will, our programming for the Small Business Patriot, I think you fall into a realm of manufacturing, if you will, because I know some of the stuff that you produce, you're not just your fly by night. I mean, you produce a product line, and you invent some of the products as well.
Mhm.
And so, as time has progressed in your business, and you've recognized customers keep coming back for certain things, you've included those into your offering, into your repeat type products. So it's been, in the short time I've known you, it's been interesting to get to know you better and understand how you've worked. But you're a cottage manufacturing, and it's so prevalent in our nation to turn that overseas, to ship that stuff out. It's so much more quote unquote competitive. I've seen operations where they'll take what you're doing and literally source it to China because we can have it overnighted and turn around and come back. And I won't go down a soapbox here, but I think people understand where I'm headed. It's so good and so awesome for us, our local community, for obviously your customers to know that they can meet the person doing it. We've brought product, our household is using your services. And how nice it is to know that I know the person that's handling this manufacturing piece or this operation. And so we need, as a nation, we need folks like you that are, it's not something that, it's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, but it is a craft and a lost art that I think is so important to our, I know the people that were picking up wedding dresses and bridesmaid dresses and dresses and pants. Oh my, it's critical. And you can't find anybody to do that work anymore. And so I think there's a great opportunity for you, especially since you love it. It's cool. It's real cool.
And I can say that some of the people that are seeking somebody that will alter a bridesmaid dress or a mother of the bride dress, they need something taken out, or they need it's too big at the top and too tight at the hips. A lot of the brick and mortars won't touch that. They'll take in a little bit, but I think outside the box and how can we make it work for you? So I've on my second corset in the back of a dress because it just won't zip right. And so I'm altering it enough to get it to work.
That's American ingenuity, rugged individualism, whatever you want to call it, creativity. God bless America. I mean, this is what it's about, and I think that's super cool that you're able to do that, and you're making a go of it. So, welcome to this episode. You bring an extra special flavor, if you will. And just to reiterate the program for you, I think we've already kind of discussed it in the pre-show, if you will. You're obviously welcome to jump into the conversation anytime. And I'm not going to, well, I do hog the floor a little bit, I guess, but I try to leave it open for public comment. So anyway, welcome Renee again. And thank you for sharing that. And what a cool story. And by the way, that's DIRenee Creations. And what I'll do, Renee, is I'll get, do you have a web presence or do you use Facebook?
I do.
Okay.
I have Facebook website. Yeah.
Okay. So in the show notes after the show, I will include your contact information. And do you prefer people to call you or email you? What's the best way to contact you?
Calling or emailing is perfectly fine.
Okay, so you can, at the end of the
Yeah.
show, you can give me permission to either put
Okay.
your phone number or your email out there, whichever one you prefer. But we'll put that in the show notes so folks can get in touch with you. Okay, cool. All right, Peggy Lynch with 21K Promotions. If you'll give us a quick introduction about you and your company, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
And I will, but I wonder if you wouldn't mind me adding something based on what Renee told us about her business.
By all means, please.
Kind of a good story. So many years ago, I worked, I think, for a full day at a wedding boutique. And on that day, a lady came in to pick up a dress, her wedding gown, and it was designed where at the bottom there were 3 layers of ruffles. The dress was too long, so they were supposed to alter it and make it the right length for this bride. And when she picked it up, they just cut off part of the bottom ruffle instead of taking it up at the waist, you know.
Oh, no.
So completely uneven. And they just, the boutique just thought that was okay. And I mean, oh my gosh. So, when you have somebody that, personal acquaintance that is so talented like you, it's best to work with somebody you know. So
Thank you.
Pretty
anyway,
cool.
so I am Peggy Lynch with 21K Promotions. And as a branding specialist, I work with any size business or organization, club, individuals, whatever, on getting their brand name out there in front of potential clients. And there are just hundreds of different purposes to use promotional products. You can be thanking a client, rewarding an employee, safety programs, and so forth. So that's what I do.
Okay.
And with that, there are challenges. Well, there are in every business. Although this week's challenge was, I was gathering about 8 or 10 items to present to a client for a gift shop, and there was a lot of detail involved. There's samples, virtual proofs, pricing, freight costs, etc. The issue is he wanted to make a decision before he left the country yesterday, and we were right down to the wire. 30 minutes prior to their meeting, I was still feeding them more information. So it was a success though.
Good stuff. And you were able to, I assume, was that client in St. Augustine or somewhere else?
In Clay County.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, well, and by the way, the wonders of technology, Renee is located in Clay County where I am. She's in the kind of north central Orange Park. I'm in unincorporated Clay County, Fleming Island, and Peggy is in St. Augustine, which is across the St. Johns River into St. Johns County. And of course, Zoom is nothing new to folks that are tuning in today. But here we are using our brains, our noggins, as I like to say, to be a little bit more efficient and not have to get in the car and drive at nearly $5 per gallon to have a meeting. We're actually having this meeting simultaneously from our home offices, and we're being efficient use of our time and use of our resources as well. So we've got to be thinking that way as small business owners. Anytime we can cut off some travel time or use of resources, we've got to sharpen our pencils, especially the times we live in. So thank you for whoever came up with Zoom and Teams and all these other meetings that come up. I didn't embrace it at first, but I wish I had bought stock in this stuff now. But anyway, here we are. Okay, Peggy. So in keeping with our theme, or at least our tradition, do you have a subject matter that's been pressing on your heart that maybe you want to share, and then we can kind of talk about?
Sure, yes. So as you continue to build your business, what are your long-term plans as far as when you're ready to retire? Are you going to turn it over to family? You're going to sell it? What is the route you're thinking of going?
What is your exit plan, we call that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as I tilt my head here, I'm not being rude, I'm taking notes. Trying to get out an exit plan. Well, This is a topic that I spent probably close to 13 years working as in a financial advisory role, as I like to say. I was not a financial advisor according to the American College. I was a registered representative, but 99% of my clients were small business owners or closely held corporations. And so I got to see, sitting across the table from probably 1,800 business owners and a book about 400 clients, this was a topic that was heavy on their hearts. It's interesting. We all start businesses and we're excited about the beginning stage and all the fury that takes place of building a business and going through the challenges of getting it up and running and being profitable and sustainable. And then somewhere along the way, if in time someone says, well, how long are you going to do this? And how are we going to get out of it? And sometimes it comes sooner when the business owner is like, oh my gosh, what have I done to myself? How do I get out of this nonsense? And how do I, plan for the next step? And so that succession planning or exit planning can be as critical as the beginning. And depending on where you are in your life cycle and what you're trying to achieve, if you don't have a succession plan or an exit strategy, it can be even more critical. So this is kind of a topic I like to think about anyway, and had some experience with it. Excuse me. It's not a discussion in whole heart that we can accomplish on this show, but we can definitely talk about it. And I got a thing going on my throat here. Hang on a second. Having said that, we won't cover in detail that there's much detail to talk about it, but I guess the overriding question is, let's take the family piece of it first. If you're going to turn it over to family, I think a lot of my clients in the past always thought the family, especially moms, it seems like I had a slew of folks that were matriarchs, that were the business owners, the starters of the business and the owners. And they got into business because they needed to be flexible when their children were young. Renee talked a little bit about this when the grandkids showed up and the children graduated and got married and started having kids. Renee became the kind of chief babysitter and chief grandma. And you've expressed that you're kind of going through some of that withdrawals right now because summer has started, the kids are out of school. But a lot of matriarchs started businesses because they needed the flexibility to work around their families. Well, then they became highly successful, and it became sometimes weaponized against the family members to try to maintain some sort of continuity in the family. I'm thinking of one client where there were, say, 5 or 6 siblings, and as you may know, when we get older, some of us may or may not want to be involved in the business. Our plans may not be exactly what mom's plans were. And so oftentimes my experience at least showed that a dad or a mom family member would try to orchestrate from the grave oftentimes that the family would be a unified unit after they were gone, because this business is the thing that would keep them together. That's all fair and good in thought, but oftentimes each one of us are individuals. And so in this one particular case I'm thinking of, out of this 5 or 6 siblings, 2 of them, maybe 3 of them are interested at all in the business. And the rest of them like, no, I don't want to have nothing to do with the business. I don't want to have to work as hard as my mom did to get this thing started, or my dad did to get this thing started. And that's not what I wanted to be when I grew up. That was her dream, not mine. And so that's one element of the family piece of the business. Typically in the United States, I have this theory about we're all America is suffering from 3rd generation prosperity. The immigrants came across and everybody as a whole nuclear family lived in one walk-up building in the city. And the shop was downstairs. Maybe it was a deli or it was a haberdasher or something like that. And they lived upstairs and everybody worked in the shop. And grandma and grandpa started the shop, and their children worked every day in the shop. And that second generation came along and worked their tail off, but they really strived for their children to have everything that they didn't have. And so by the time they got to the third generation, where Junior and Sally, whatever the child's name was, they got to have to work in the business, and they'd been sent to the best schools. They went to the best college to get an education because their parents believed this shop was a dead end street, and they wanted their children to have the best they could have. And lo and behold, they spoiled them. They didn't learn a work ethic, and by the third generation comes along, when grandma and grandpa die, and even mom and dad die, the first thing the generation does is sell the business and sell the building. And so that sentiment to orchestrate succession planning from the grave, if you will, that's where it falls apart. And we can look at historical companies, especially from New York and Chicago, the likes of the cities where most of our immigrants came to after the war. And there's rarity. I mean, can you think of a company in Chicago, Peggy, that was a Uno Pizza? I mean, how old was Uno Pizza? Was that a immigrant family that started that?
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
And that's been probably sold 3-4 times. I don't know that I know that I've eaten in what's claimed to be the original building. I don't know, but we can think of most of it was tied to delicatessens or haberdashery. That's where those things started. But by the time we get to the third generation, they're gone. So the next side of that, from a family standpoint, is a corporation. Corporations are not people, and so there can be some longevity to them because the personality is not going along with it. We can sell the unit, or plan to its demise or its succession, because there's not a personal piece of it that goes along with it. It's just numbers and profits and losses. So I guess the planning, it's just one of a couple of solutions. Basically, the business dies with you would be number one, and I can think of a whole bunch of scenarios where family members started a business and their children got involved in it, and to a certain point where they realized they didn't want to be in that business anymore, and mom and dad got to be too old where they couldn't manage and produce the business anymore, and it died. It just, there was no new capital, either mental or fiscal capital, invested into it, and it slowly died on the vine. And then whatever was left in assets, if they held real estate for the building itself or something like that, it was sold. So that, in a sense, that was one plan. That was one of the plans for the future of the business. Just let it die. And that happens a lot. The second side, I would say, if someone's got the foreknowledge and wants to have some longevity in their business, they need some planning. And so on the family piece, going back to that just for a second, there are methods. Let's say you've got a brother and sister, and the brother's heavily involved in the manufacturing business. Dad was a trucking company or a welder or something like that. And the son was just naturally involved in it, but the daughter had nothing to do with it. What typically happens in these situations is dad's going to leave the company in an estate planning cycle to the son, and then the daughter or other siblings would get nothing. And so a lot of my work was what's called estate equalization. And so there's no law that says that our parents, our forefathers, have to leave us something. There's plenty of people that say, the hell with these kids. I gave them a name and I gave them a good education, and they got to go out and strike it out on their own, just like I did. But some parents believe that it's their duty or their birthright to leave something behind. And there's a lot of times where Junior, the son, was involved in the business. It just seemed obvious that he would take over the business, but they didn't have the foresight to realize that, well, Sally has worked, part-time in the business in and out of school and around college and stuff. She has no interest in the business, but is it in their world fair to leave her nothing? Well, when you have that conversation with one of these folks, they're like, I've never thought about that. I just figured Sally would, upon my death, and Junior would get the business, Sally would always have a job and she could work at the industry, at the business, but she would have no ownership. That's typically the way it worked. And so in the financial services business, there's a way to plan for that. You can, in a sense, sell the business to Junior by moving stock over time, putting the schedule together, it's stock. It's not publicly traded stock, but it's shares of the company. And then we could buy life insurance or create an estate so that when the owner dies, that the daughter is made whole. So if the company's worth $1 million, Junior gets the company for $1 million, and Sally gets $1 million cash benefit from a life insurance policy. We've equalized the estate. There's arguments that go along with that because Junior gets a company that's worth $1 million, but he still has to go to work, and Sally walks away with $1 million in cash, tax-free. And who's the smarter one for that? I don't know, but it depends on where you want to do with the company. I think the short answer for this, for the sake of the programming, is there are many steps that can be taken for the succession plan. If the plan is to develop a business and pass it to another generation, whether it be inside your family or to have it sold, to another owner, there's planning that you can do for that. And the earlier you can start that planning with a financial professional, the better. Because if you're going to sell it, for example, there's some accounting that we need to have in place. Your CPA wants to be involved in this to make sure that you can come up with a value. You can assess the value of the company properly for tax purposes as well as for sale. And there are some things that internally to the company that you want to be keeping track of. So you can have some historical data to make sure that the value of the company that you're trying to get from it can be validated. If it's a family transition, to leave it to a family, same thing. You really need to start planning, and maybe there's trust involved or some estate planning. Basically, if you need life insurance to equalize the estate, you better get the life insurance while you're still insurable. And if you don't have it while you're insurable, you're going to have to put together a sinking fund. You're going to have to start steering some money to a bucket that the other child can receive versus the business. And time is of the essence. If you wait till the last minute, that's not going to work. Your plan is not going to be successful. That's kind of a 5,000 foot level, maybe 10,000 foot level of a very deep, broad conversation that could take place. I guess the key is planning. There's a solution to every one of your desires, but it's going to take starting now. And let's identify what it is that you want to accomplish. Sit down with family members and the owners of the company and hash this out. What is it you want to finalize to look like? And then get with a professional, your CPA and a financial professional, and put a plan together. The sooner that you can start, the better. That's my 2 cents there. Peggy or Renee, any thoughts on that? Maybe your background in banking, did you run into that ever? Or
no, I worked a lot with like the fiduciary side. So, I have some of that estate planning knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been thinking what's going to happen in 10, 15 years. Will my granddaughter, who loves everything grandma does she want to take some part of this skill and maybe earn some money while she's in college? Continue? I don't know. So those are good thoughts for me.
Well, it skipped a generation with you. I mean, you sat at your grandmother's knee or lap and witnessed what was going on. And maybe that's, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would you think your daughter would be like, oh, I can't wait for a month? No.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Here, mom. Here, mom.
And that's not, as it may be disappointing on some level when you start this business and things are successful and you built something, is what you've done. You've actually built something. And what a treasure, a legacy is what we talk about all the time. It's a legacy to leave this stuff behind. how cool would it be? Because there's a piece of you in it. I mean, let's be honest with each other. There's a prideful moment, and that's not a bad thing. There's a prideful moment that says, I built this, by the grace of God and my customers and my sweat and toil. I would love for to leave it to someone to carry my legacy forward. Well, that's all good as long as the next person's interested in your legacy,
Right.
and a lot of times they're not. If the granddaughter is the one who sees, very, I don't think she's thinking about legacy just yet, but she sees something she likes, and then one day wakes up and goes, wait a minute, there's something here. If all timing adds up, you're still alive and she's capable enough to see the value of it, you may have some legacy there. I don't think it's a bad thing for a company to serve a quote unquote shorter term purpose. I mean, not everything has to be legacy driven. You can have, I talk about why people start their businesses. There's several reasons to realize what they're truly worth, get paid what they think they're truly worth. They believe they can make a better product or provide a better service than where they were working before. Or what we talked about in the opening is to work around families' needs. Well, once we've done that to a certain extent and the family needs change, and we don't need it anymore, for a business to close up, it's not a death sentence for, something that we're going to terribly grieve over. It served its purpose. But when we do start talking about legacy and what we want to accomplish from that point, then you got to do some planning. And you got to have willing participants. That's the key, is willing participants. You can have all the legacy thoughts you want, but no willing participants, it's not a legacy. Peggy, were you thinking something or?
Yeah, just a couple things. So I don't want to start any rumors about me retiring, because I'm not. I mean, that subject came up, but no, I'm not going anywhere for a long while, I don't think. So, and just a quick note. So I have one daughter, and I asked her when she was a teenager, are you going to follow in your father's business at some point, or mine? And she just looked at me without hesitation and said, I will start my own.
Yeah. And that's I think it's healthy. As much as I am a believer, as I build myself the small business patriot, we can wax romantically about American businesses and things that were started here in America and how we traditionally have kept moving forward. But sometimes other people have their own dreams, and it's okay. Would we part of us as a nation that's growing up over 200 how old are we now, over 250 years old, we're well into that third generation mindset where there's new and innovative things that each one of us can be doing, and our children. Your daughter expressed poignantly she didn't want to be in either business. She wanted to go out and strike a business of her own, and I think she's been fairly successful at doing that. So your legacy, if you will, is instilling upon her to be that independent, creative, use the God-given talents that she's been given to go out and fulfill her own desires, and to build her own business. And her business may one day have legacy notes to it or not. It may have just served a purpose. So yeah, I think it's easy to wax, that's interesting, romantically about what these things are, and it gives us some staying power past the grave. But the reality is, small business, all businesses, big and large, started out as small businesses. So I guess the Goodyear Tire Company, for example, there's a company that started with Mr. Goodyear, and he was grinding rubber tree plants and making tires out of them. That's the legacy product right there. Now, how many Goodyears? Guess what? Third generation hit those guys too. I don't know the answer to this off the top of my head, but I wonder how many Goodyears have ownership in the company. I'm sure the lion's share has been sold off. Maybe they own portions of shares or something like that. I remember when Walmart, Mr. Sam Walton was the richest man in the world. And then when he died, suddenly his, I don't know, 7 or 8 children and in-laws, husbands and wives, became the most richest people in the earth, in the world at the time, because his estate was split amongst them. Well, every time that happens, it dilutes, and so the Walmart family is not individually the richest people in the world anymore. And so another generation or two, they may not even be involved in the organization anymore. So that just happens. But I guess to wrap this topic up, and by the way, a great topic, Peggy, because like I said before, if you're thinking about legacy, if you're thinking about you've got something you want to leave behind, and not just because it's ego driven for yourself, but your children or your family members have expressed a deep interest in staying involved in this business and a desire and a passion to be a part of it, then you've got to get some planning taken care of. The sooner the better, because if you die and you're a sole proprietorship or a LLC or closely held corporation, and you die, you're the principal without any planning, the state's going to figure out what to do with your company. And that may not be the terms and the outcome that you were looking for. And so you've got to start planning today and get with a professional, a CPA that understands business succession planning, whether it be legacy to family members or to sell it, and get with your financial advisor, someone who understands small business and business succession planning, and get if you don't have the three-legged stool, your CPA, your business financial advisor, and your business attorney. And you should have relationships with those folks. Each one, if you're at a certain point in your career or you're a certain point in your business, you don't have to call each one of them every day and get a bill from them, but you should have a working relationship with a strong CPA, a strong business-minded financial advisor, and a business attorney. And those folks with proper planning will help you design a succession plan to your needs. Without it, they won't. So anyway, that's good. It gave me a chance to revisit some of my second love, helping people design those plans. So it's pretty cool. Okay, anything else before it's 9:45 real time. So we're as long as we don't go over an hour, that's all I care about. Renee, since you're new to the table, any other thoughts or input you want to share?
Not right now, just a lot of information at this point.
Yeah. Your business, of what I know, have witnessed. And how old is your granddaughter?
She's 8.
Okay.
She's started to make little things with the embroidery machine that we've sold and promoted for her, and we put it toward her dance. So she does have that little bit of bug of what can I make and sell.
So she sees the means to the end. She says, okay, I made this, I sold it, and I got to have direct benefit from it.
Right.
And I like dancing, so that's something I wanted to facilitate.
Right.
Well, the legacy part of that might be your education that you're leaving behind, that knowledge and that imprint, if you will, on their brain, that rugged individualism, capitalism, all those things that America is the greatest country for. And they're not teaching this in school like they should. That's a whole nother podcast. But you're doing what's right. And so maybe your legacy is to leave that imprint on her, whether it ends up being this business that you have currently. She may, like Peggy's daughter, go out and strike her own future and do something on her own, but based on the foundation what she learned at your lap. So I think that would be as important or more important than anything else.
Right.
Because we need more granddaughters who have that imprint on their brain that knows that free market capitalism is what makes this country so great, because it satisfies her needs. It allows her to pursue her happiness the way she wants to. So every time I start talking like this, I think they should have like music in the background going, God bless America, and one of us waving a flag through the background. But I'm being serious. But I do get a little theatric about it sometimes. I get weepy. All right. Let's shift gears. Peggy, before I close up, you want anything else to wrap this up? Are you good?
Just want to say I'm so happy to see Renee on the call today.
Thank you. Starting a new chapter of my life, as some people know, just going down to part-time grandma nanny. So as needed.
Mm-hmm.
On call nanny. That could be
On call. Teacher planning days is what it'll be. Or can I have an overnight with grandma? Sleep over? Yeah. Yes.
You may get more than those than you think.
That's okay.
Just my wife and youngest daughter are over on the coast with our oldest daughter and their 5 and husband and 5 grandchildren. And so I'm a bachelor this weekend, but I've got a commitment that I have to be here for the weekend and then also Monday and Tuesday. And I just said, go make memories and have a good time. So I think if my wife had it her way, we would live at my daughter's house with the grandkids, but I'm like, no, we don't want to do that. Anyway, okay, so I do want to share a little bit about the Northeast Florida Business Alliance, and you kind of, Peggy, by you reaching out to Renee and saying how nice it was to see her, even though we're seeing each other over our TV screens, if you will. I've been asking a lot of questions of our current clients. We're somewhere in the range of 70 members of our organization, and I ask a lot of questions, as you guys know, and that's really the only way I get sound feedback. And so I had a conversation with a lady over at the River House. We were at the River House on Thursday night, and I just basically said, look, what is the value? What do you get from this organization? What is your takeaway? And I thought she said it really well. There is a piece of this that's very metrics driven, meaning that I bring or I and we bring a salesy numbers educational piece to the table. We bring solid, fact-based information about if you're going to be profitable, you need to make this amount of money, cost of goods sold, profit margins, and how to what I classify under the metrics of business building and sales. Then there's another element that I've discovered I wasn't aware that was happening, but now it makes sense that we as small business people are typically I'm looking in the room here, we're all individuals. Some of us got into the business for whatever reason, and we're such lone wolves at this. We're such rugged individuals that we tend to have blinders on when it comes to running our businesses to be focused, so we can stay focused. And what I've discovered is each one of us have that trait about us, and we need someone to talk to. We need someone to communicate and, as I say, commiserate with. And sometimes our spouses or closest family members are not the greatest resource for that, because I know in my household, my spouse, no discredit at all, she doesn't understand my passion for this, and she's wired differently. It took me a long time being married to her to figure that out. I tried to change her and she tried to change me, but I mean, I think I'm speaking to the choir. And I've had several clients in our group have come to me where I was actually coaching. I was hired a side note to provide some coaching, and I only saw the metrics value proposition for charging them a fee. And I would get to a certain level where I figured, well, we've got you up and running now. We've got you dialed in and figured out. I feel like I'm stealing money from you. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to self-fire myself. Well, lo and behold, more than not, those people have come back to me and said, Dave, look, there's more to this than just the metrics. There's more to this than just the numbers. We need someone, and I'm not just saying me, we're as a community, this is what I'm talking about. We need individuals that are like-minded, who we can pick up the phone, meet for a bite over, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or meet for a drink, and be able to commiserate, knowing that that person understands the struggles and challenges that I'm going through as well. And maybe it's you, Dave, or maybe it's a friendship that we make in the group. But that's highly important. And then the other side of that is we need an organization, a body of people that we can socialize with and kind of let our hair down. The gal that I was talking to at the river house, by no means we were not being crass, but we were kind of, being silly, telling some jokes. But we knew that in each other's space that we could have that moment of letting our hair down, and I wasn't going to judge her and she wasn't going to judge me. But there was this kind of a relaxation mode. She could take off the hat, and we could just be friends, and have some fun and amongst the group that we met. And I'm like, okay, is that valuable? Is there value in that piece of the puzzle? And she said, by all means. It could be more valuable than the numbers. I could be in business to the point where my metrics are working. I understand the principle of profit and margins and all that sort of stuff, but I have no one to talk to. And I need someone to be able to download and to, cry on a shoulder or celebrate a success, whatever it is. It's just, we're so lone wolf mindseted by being self-employed people. It just doesn't lend itself to that. And so to have this organization, this is part of the puzzle that I want to promote for Northeast Florida Business Alliance, is that's yet one more piece we bring to the table. And I think I'm going to ask you for some feedback, not to blow, wind up my skirt, but I mean, is that sound, do you understand what I'm talking about? Is there reality to that? If one of you want to share about that, maybe? Renee, can I put you on the spot? I mean, have you found, if it's a blank no, Dave, that tell me, but I mean, have you found?
I have really found a lot of friendships by going to the luncheons or the after hours things. They get to know me a little bit better, how I work. I get so many ideas from so many other business owners that it has just helped me grow in the last 3 years. It's unbelievable. So I'm hoping to get even more knowledge now that this new season is upon me, to grow even better.
Okay. Any thought, Peggy, or?
Yes. So I think each one of us has been in the corporate arena in an environment where there's individual, cubbies, and you step out of your cubby if you have a question or a thought, and you make a quick right turn and you've got somebody to chat with or share your issue with. When you work alone, you don't have anybody, to share, the successes or even the disappointments. You're just by yourself. So it is very healthy to have these social events as well, to interact on a social level as well as, on a business level.
Right. Being in that corporate world for 25 years, I didn't have anybody after hours or the weekends or any of that. I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel so much better and so much happier being out of that environment and in my own space, and having a huge amount of friendships now that I can just call and say, hey, you want to meet me for a walk at the mall or something, just to be with you and to be around other people and just to share ideas or what's going on in my life and their life.
Yeah.
So it feels great.
I can reflect on my early years, even though I was self-employed as a furniture rep. I worked for Herman Miller, Fortune 100 company, so big corporate structures, and all my clients I called on were corporate end users. And I never really got a sense, because I participated in this. That was part of my early career that I learned eventually that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. But I really didn't look to build consensus and team. I figured out which rung I needed to climb over next to get where I was going. And if you were in the way, you got stepped on. Where now I see as self-employed, and I've always been self-employed again, but I kind of forged my own future, but to have other like-minded people around me that were interested in my success as much as I was in theirs goes a long ways. You know, like you said, join me for a walk at the mall. I don't think the people that are joining for the walk at the mall are coming over to say, hey, what's your margin on this piece so I can go back to my shop and knock it off and put you out of business. No, that's not what they're doing. If quite the contrary, they want to be uplifting and supportive and encouraging and to keep you moving, you know, give you some insightful ideas maybe you haven't thought about. And so to wrap this up, and I'm not just, I am promoting, for those of you that live in Clay, St. John's, and Duval County, our organization, Northeast Florida Business Alliance. But what I'm saying from a national standpoint, from a small business patriot, we small business owners have got to gain some friends. We've got to organize and come around a group. And whatever the group is, wherever you live, wherever you're listening to this or watching this, I encourage each one of us to join forces with like-minded individuals, because the thing that's working against us, our individualism, has been the thing that made us successful. But we live in a time frame now where our current quote unquote leadership is not friendly to small business and the individual. So they're trying to stamp us out of business. I won't go too far in the weeds on this, but we have got to join forces. And it's not necessarily in our DNA because we are such rugged individuals. We just want to be out on our own, but we need to be around other people. We need to have community. So I want to encourage you, whoever's listening to this, if you're in Clay County, Duval, or St. John's, please check us out on LinkedIn. You can follow our group, Northeast Florida Business Alliance. And again, my name is David Theus, like the US, Theus. So find me on LinkedIn and sign up, and let's get together and build a relationship. And then let's forge a community together. But I think the future of us to be successful and to have legacy, if you will, to wrap this up, to build sustainable businesses that we can pass on and build legacy, to have, you know, independent people be business owners for the future, is we've got to build some community. So that worked out well together. Didn't a nice transition there and closure? How about that?
Very good.
It's amazing what you can come up with if you just keep talking. It just flows together. Anyway, I've said enough. It's 10 o'clock real time on my side, so we're up against the hour, and I do not want to go over an hour. Renee, thank you so much for being a part of our call this morning, and congratulations on your new season. And all things are going to work well. So these are good things, and these are the challenges that make us grow. You know, when you're out gardening, you can attest to this. Now I won't give it away, but if you're gardening, sometimes you have to prune back the bushes so they come back stronger, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Especially those pesky banana trees, right?
Yes. Keep that a secret.
All right. And Peggy, thank you again for your steadfastness and your willing to participate. So I appreciate you so much. And with that, we'll wrap it up. So as I always tell folks, have a prosperous rest of your weekend, and Memorial Day. Please remember those who fought for our liberties and our freedom and sacrificed their all, and stay vigilant. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Good day, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.